what do you see in game dev today?
I think that, over the past handful of years, we saw game development get very, very expensive as we grew rapidly to sort of fill what we thought was a need for content. Um,
Mhm.
Meaning, COVID left us all feeling like people are going to play games forever. Companies rushed to fill that hole with games, which led to a lot of competition for resources, which led to an increased cost of for employment, aka people are expensive, especially in North America. And so then as we saw sort of the lack of appetite for those games as we came back into real life off of COVID, those increased costs of making games simply weren't justifiable for the market opportunity that was associated with them when they went to market, um, aka the layoffs that we're going through as an industry. So, too much investment, spending too much money, and things that didn't have sort of the right product market fit. And we're going through layoffs. So, I think we're still seeing a reaction to that in terms of game companies looking at how to make games more affordably, which is resulting in looking for a lot of like outsourcing and third party development in the industry, especially outside of North America, where there are lower cost resources. I think in addition to that, we've seen a contraction from what was normally what we would call like publisher investment in content. So once upon a time, games were largely funded by games publishers. They did the funding, and then they also did all of the go-to-market work to take the game to players. With sort of that contraction in market opportunity for games, that means there are fewer publishers also spending money on bringing games to market, as therefore a correlated reduction in just publishing services being available to game makers. So we're seeing far more people have to rely on self-publishing, indie
Mhm.
publishing, bringing games to market themselves and through other creative ways. Those are just a few of the trends I think we're seeing right now. I think
Well,
like in summary, it's still kind of we're all learning about how we're being affected by the last couple of years.
yeah. So do you see this as like, hey, this is still a bump we're gonna come out of, or are you like, no, this is a sea change?
I think it's really a sea change. I think like the way that games are made and distributed is fundamentally changing. You and I have talked about this in our times of knowing each other. Like once upon a time, game creation could be and largely was very auteur based, meaning a creative could have an idea and a vision for a game and lead a team to delivering that to market. And because of lack of competition, if you did a decent job, that economically worked out. And I think hopefully a lot of your listeners have seen the stats out there of how like much more expensive game creation has become.
Yeah.
So, game development therefore has become way more what I call player led, or like, are you solving a player need? If you're not starting with identifying and solving a player need, it's unlikely that your game is going to reach the audience it needs to make that investment worth it. And it's kind of fundamentally changed how games are made and published in that it is very player led. You're building a player into the way you make the game, the way you market the game, the way you deliver the game, which is a huge change. And then compound that with we're also changing the development process by working with external teams.
hmm So I'm gonna poke at something that you haven't mentioned because it's just so hot right now. You haven't talked about AI at all.
Not yet. We're only 2 minutes in. Let's
No,
get
I
there.
know. I know. Well, so I actually really appreciate that though, because I think AI is a often overblown piece of the puzzle, giving you a little bit of my opinion on it. And I like that you actually are taking this as like, look, I'm just looking at market opportunity, saturation of market, like the way publishers are responding to downturns in the market, these sorts of like that's all the stuff that you're kind of bringing up. And yeah, like again, I appreciate the fact that like, okay, so how let's dive into that. How do you see AI plugging in or not plugging in as we go forward based on your experience with it?
I mean, I personally love it as like somebody who works largely and like by myself these days it's like having a collaboration partner. I think that data is playing a larger and larger piece of game development and games marketing and engagement. Meaning, Steam is over 50% of the market. Steam is largely driven by an algorithm. Then your job as a marketer becomes how do I engage that algorithm to benefit my game so I can find an audience, which is, again, data. I
Mm,
think there are opportunities to leverage AI or easier ways of manipulating data to understand like large volumes of data and make better decisions. And I think that it could be really awesome in production, games production, like how do you more succinctly articulate a goal? How do you more succinctly identify KPIs? Like when I think of opportunities for the development and publishing process to be better, it is really around these like goals based, like what are we doing? How are we doing it? Like breaking that down into systems. And I think AI helps with structuring information in a really fast and easy way so that not everybody has to like learn those best practices and can kind of benefit from them. I do think on the creative side, like AI will give us new opportunities to engage with games in ways that we wouldn't have been able to before. And I find that really exciting. So I don't just mean like content generation, like I
mm,
mean literally living people in a world or ways to leverage conversation. Like that part is really cool, I think, for gamers. Like I think we'll actually get gameplay experiences that are unique of this generation. But thus far, I am less worried about it just like wiping out humans in the process. I still think, at least where we are today, you have to know how to leverage the tools meaningfully. It's still ripe for error. And for what it's worth, like really large companies struggle to find resources to focus on how to leverage AI in their work streams and tools. I'm sure you've seen versions of that.
yeah,
It's really hard to do anything other than what you're already doing when you're in like a busy, succeeding ecosystem. And then on the disruption side, it takes a high amount of subject matter expertise to make something that matters. So it doesn't mean I don't think there's nothing there. I mean, I think there are ways to enhance our work systems and bring more clarity to data and help those of us that spend a lot of our time around words make words better or at least slightly improved or ease that
yeah, yeah,
process. Um, but I'm not close enough to believe that there's like there's no more 2D artists ever needed again or whatever like the
yeah,
bigger impacts might be.
yeah, yeah. Don't fire all your engineers just yet.
Just yet. Just yet. Yeah. And for what it's worth, I've been through a lot of changes and I've been through the like VR is going to destroy everything or esports is going to take over the world or we've all seen these sort of like huge trends and like it comes down to it like when the dust settles. Um some things
Yeah,
lead to major disruption, some things have not, and yeah.
yeah, yeah. I view it as slightly. It's going to have a bigger impact than I think Web3 did, as Web3 I think is sort of fading, and I think appropriately so, as it did not solve a player question, a player need, as
Right.
you were saying
A
earlier.
player need. Yeah.
Um, I think AI will actually help us solve player needs. So, no, I appreciate that. Anything then on that side to wrap up sort of state of game dev, if you put on that business nerd hat, like, and you're looking at this, speaking to leaders in game dev, like what's like, hey, this is something I think you should keep an eye on or be aware of or whatever that, some dude like me who's just like, I just ship games or whatever. Like what would you tell me?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fundamental shift in increased competition, like tons of games coming to market, Steam being a big place where those games do come to market, Steam being very much driven by algorithms, I think means that there is more and more responsibility and opportunity around community building, understanding your player, building that audience. Like that has now become like critical part of the entire game development and publishing ecosystem. I think that's the thing to keep an eye on is like thing one as a dev, like I've got to figure out who my audience is in order to build a successful game. And thing two is like, how am I going to do that? And like, what are tools for doing that? And some are self-service, some are for hire. I think that's from a game developer who doesn't think much about publishing. That would be my thing to remind them of.
Love it.
It's an
Love
important
it.
piece of the pie.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's dive into publishing.